stream is starting.
All right, just give me a second. We'll start in just a minute. All right, so hi everyone. Thank you for coming for this webinar. So the topic for today's discussion is going to be wetland protection. So first of all, happy Wetlands Day. I don't know which time zone everyone is in, but the time zone I'm in, it's wetland day. So wetlands are the backbone of India's west coast. They provide protection against flooding and all sorts of natural calamities, and are a home to several species of birds and flora and fauna, and a source of serenity, a source of beauty, and a calming influence in a rapidly urbanizing India. So the question we're going to tackle today is, why is it so hard to protect them, and what can we do to help? So this webinar touches upon the challenges of wetland conservation and touches upon the importance of community-based and policy solutions to for their protection. Today, our speakers will touch upon the value, imminent threats, and approaches we can take to protect our wetlands. So I would like to welcome our speakers. So let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yes.
All right. So hold on, sorry. Yeah. So Jyoti, so first we have Jyoti Nadkarni, who is of Kharkar Wetlands. Jyoti was an animal welfare officer and a humane education officer with the Animal Welfare Board of India. She was the chairperson for Friends of City Park Committee of Nature in Nairobi, Kenya, and has actively been involved in birding, bird ringing, and bird and nature photography since 2006. She was a member of the Ghana Planetarium Society and the chairperson for Kenya Women's Society. She's also been actively involved in surveying wetlands with the Raigad Wetland Committee. So thank you for attending today's talk, Jyoti, and thank you for agreeing to be as a speaker. Our next speaker, I'm going to share my screen again. Just give me a sec. Our next speaker today is Sunil Agarwal, the co-founder of Save Navi Mumbai Environment. Thank you for joining us today. Sunil is a chartered accountant and environmentalist, and he's also the co-founder of the Save Navi Mumbai Environment. And at the ripe age of 58, he's doing all of these things. I just want to point that out. That's really cool. So he's worked in the finance department of Nosil, Jindal Steel, Gharda Chemicals, and became fond of the environment and nature after shifting to Navi Mumbai in 1996. He's an activist who has filed a petition in the Bombay High Court in March 2018 to protect 35 hectares of wetlands on Palm Beach Road, which were handed over by CIDCO to a private builder for making a residential tower project in the name of a golf course. So thank you for joining us, Sunil. We hope we're looking forward to listening to you. Our last speaker, but not the least, let me share my screen again. So if you attended the previous webinar, you probably know who she is. Our last speaker today is Sarita Fernandez, who's a maritime policy scholar So Sarita is a coastal and maritime policy scholar, specifically with her work on land use of coastal zones, ocean governance, and resource management of maritime zones, and stakeholder equity into politics. She also studies conflict resolution in coastal land use, maritime resource management, conservation, and case studies of conflict within ocean economy sectors. So thank you for attending today as well, Sarita. And just a big thank you to, oh, sorry, my bad. Um, so yeah, just thank you all for attending today's speakers. And also thank you for your work in wetland preservation and just the good of the wetland. So now we'll begin with a small talk by all the speakers. So I think we can start with Jyoti and then move on to Sunil and then Sarita in that order. So yeah, Jyoti, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, a very happy Wetland Day. Very, very important day for us, all these days which we celebrate. It's not that this is the only day we will celebrate as wetland, but we will continue. For us, every day is International Wetland Day, International Bird Day, International Environment Day. So it goes on and on. But looking into the importance of the day, it was founded 46 years ago and it was taken on the convention in Ramsar in 1971. We are very proud to celebrate this day as a reminder of the importance of the wetland, why they were meant to be secured, protected, what was the importance of wetland, how they will help us. Some of the details was given already by Ajay. But before that, we go to that, I just want to make a small correction in my introduction. I was not the Animal Welfare Officer for Animal Welfare Board of India. I was the Humane Education Officer for Animal Welfare Board of India. I was the Animal Welfare Officer for Bombay SBC, Rasti Parel Animal Hospital, which is called the Bailgoda. So anyway, coming back to the wetland.
Sorry about that. Like you've done so much work in the field. You've done so many things in the field, so we got confused about your achievement.
Okay, it's all right. It's okay. So for everybody knows what wetlands are. It can be anything from a freshwater wetland or a coastal wetland. It can be a marsh. It can be a swamp, जो हम बोलते हैं दलदल है, खाड़ी है. These are actually the wetlands which are very important for us because they are the one which absorb so much water. They are the if they are not there, they are like a guard system. They are like sponge. They have several benefits. So these wetlands actually act as, first thing is they are the filter, the natural filters for us. The chemicals, the sediments which flows into the river, they trap all the sediments. They catch all the pollutants, the inorganic waste. Because the wetlands are always full with plants, different kinds of plants, the aquatic plants, the reeds, the shrubs, the herbs which are around. So these roots, they actually filter the water and then that is sent to the stream. So first of all, the wetland is actually the filtration system for us, which is given naturally to us. Secondly, it acts like a sponge. So during the flooding time, the water gets absorbed in it. And then just like sponge, slowly the water is released. The water is released slowly back to the ground during the dry area. So again, the water, it recharges the groundwater. So that's the third thing, importance about the wetland. It recharges our groundwater. So wherever the wetlands are preserved, you will not find flooding over there. You will not find dry spells over there. And this is what is happening in Mumbai, because we in Mumbai also had a lot of wetlands, but everything was destroyed. So there is no place, no open ground, no swamps where the water can get absorbed. And that is why they are facing flood. And we are saved here in Navi Mumbai that we don't get so much flood situations because they are still existing. And we have to protect that. Thirdly, as I said, they also are kind of what we can say, it controls the flooding, recharging of water. It attracts a lot of other habitat. It grows a lot of habitat, flora and fauna. It's actually a home for a lot of flora and fauna. You find a lot of different kind of species in wetland, because they harbor these kind of plants and animals. The plants which attracts the pollinators, which attract the bees attracts the insects, the birds, the bee eaters, the other animals. So it's like a chain. So it's actually a home for so much of flora, fauna. It's also a recreational ground with so many things around us. It is helping us in conserving water. It is protecting floods, filtration. It is attracting flora, fauna. There is rich biodiversity of flora, fauna, which sometimes you only find in that particular wetland. You will never find in any other place, because of the kind of species of plants and the food which gets attracted to the plants and the system which is there. So to see, it is also a recreational ground, because it gives us such a beautiful space with so many insects and birds and butterflies and plants and reptile species and amphibians. It becomes a recreational space for people like us, for birders, to go there and watch the different species which are there. And also it helps the community somewhere down the line. All these things helps the local communities to survive. In past, nowadays it is completely different, but in past, the local communities who used to live in that area, they used to do the traditional way of fishing. They used to survive on fishing. The reeds used to be made into baskets, thatching roofs. So the plants which were there were having certain medicinal value. So they knew how to take charge of those plants, they and treat themselves. There were certain plants which were used as food during drought condition. So these are the things the wetlands are actually helping us in many ways. That is the reason why we need to protect it. Yes, Ajay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for your words. So we'll move on to the next speaker. Then that will be Sunil. So Sunil, thank you for joining us. By the way, for everyone who's listening, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will address them after the speakers finish their piece. You'll also get a chance to ask your questions personally to the speakers over your mic and camera. So yeah, Sunil, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Jyoti, for explaining all the benefits of wetlands and the important role they play in protecting our Navi Mumbai from floods and other benefits. So, as a normal person, you will expect that government authorities will be working towards protection of these wetlands, because they play a very important role in protecting our area from floods, and besides other benefits. They are also habitat for migratory birds, and they can be turned into a very good tourist attraction. So in October 2017, when builder moved in here and started destroying trees, mangroves, and started dumping in this wetland. So normally, earlier people used to approach SIDCO. Like in Kharghar, we have spoken to our friends. So for a number of years, they were saying destruction of wetlands, debris dumping, and they used to complain to SIDCO, and nothing was happening. Luckily, here in our case, we had certain senior person like Mr. Vinod Munshi was there, who had introduced us to the wetland committee. And when we complained to wetland committee, they immediately stopped the work here. And but since the debris was not being removed, we decided to file a public interest litigation in Bombay High Court. And Bombay High Court also asked them to remove the debris from wetland and restore the wetland. And also we won the case in November 2018. So coming to the threats to wetlands of Navi Mumbai, the biggest threat is here that the planning authority, SIDCO, does not recognize any wetlands or mangroves in this area. In the case of mangroves also, in September 2018, the Bombay High Court asked all the public bodies to hand over the mangroves with them to the Forest Department of Maharashtra government. SIDCO is the last public body to hand over these mangroves. And in the meantime, the destruction continues because when we complain to Forest Department, Mangrove Cell, or to the police department, they say since the land belongs to SIDCO, only SIDCO can file the complaint. Whereas SIDCO is not interested in protecting any of these mangroves. In the recent meeting when it was reported in newspaper that Aditya Thackeray, Environment Minister, had a meeting with JNPT and SIDCO, whereas JNPT agreed to transfer all the mangroves with them within a time limit of 2 to 3 months. SIDCO was explaining, no, we cannot transfer because we have planned development in these mangroves. We have certain projects here, or where we will give this land to these Gauthan people, which we have promised them against their land. So that is the attitude they are having. And that is why actually Vanashakti had to file a contempt petition in Bombay High Court, because after passing of 4 years also, the Bombay High Court order was not being implemented. And Bombay High Court has taken a very serious note of this attitude of SIDCO and other public bodies, and they asked them to file a detailed affidavit as to what is the status of compliance and why it has not been complied. Similarly, for wetlands, they simply deny that there are any wetlands here, and this denial is not based on any facts or any information. In fact, Bombay High Court, again on a petition filed by Vanashakti, has directed that all the wetlands which are in national wetlands, there was a mapping done by ISRO in 2011, and they have mapped more than 7 lakh wetlands in India. And out of that, more than 2 lakh is around 2 lakh is wetlands of more than 2.25 hectares. Bombay High Court has given protection to all the wetlands which are forming part of wetland atlas. Still, in November 2016, there are 2 wetlands behind our residential complex where we had filed this case. One is NRI wetland of around 22 hectares, and the another is TS Chanakya wetland of 14 hectares. And they gave possession to a private builder in November 2016 when all these orders were already in place. This shows that they don't give a hoot to this any court order, because the problem is that they think what will happen tomorrow, that decision may be reversed. But since they are not held accountable, no punishment is given to them. There is no penalty on them, so they are not bothered. In fact, in our case, when we went to court and we did the study in January 2017, SIDCO MD gave in writing that there are no wetlands. This certificate was given to Maharashtra Coastal Zone Management Authority, which is supposed to do independent verification, but they relied on a certificate from SIDCO MD, who is not an authority. How he is qualified to say whether there is any water body, whether it is a wetland or not? And based on just his certificate, they allowed a private builder, gave a permission to making residential towers and golf course in these wetlands. So the biggest threat is that these public bodies, which should be working towards saving these wetlands, are not interested in saving them. And because of the land value today, the area of 35 hectares in wetlands, if it was a land, would cost around 10,000 crore, and they have given to a private builder for only 33 crore. And this matter had gone to Bombay High Court in 2010 also, and court has said that SIDCO's working is not transparent, and it seems that certain people wanted to favor the mystery construction who had been allotted, and they had scrapped the whole bidding process and asked them to come out with fresh bid. So it shows that the working of SIDCO is not for public, but for to benefit certain private builders. So, the other threats like encroachment by local people and debris dumping, etc., they become minor compared to this kind of threat, which involves the whole of the wetlands. In Kharghar also we see a lot of destruction happening place. Similarly in Uran, Panje wetland, they have given that land to Reliance there. How can they give a wetland to any party? That is the question we are raising in appeal in we have filed a new appeal yesterday in Bombay High Court, and we are asking this question only: what right CIDCO has to give this kind of natural resources to a private party? In fact, they wanted to give this mangroves also to 47 hectares of mangroves also here to a private party, but luckily Maharashtra government has not given them land use change. But they gave them land use change for wetlands because they had not disclosed that there are wetlands here. They just say we want change from no development zone to regional park zone or residential zone. So, whereas in these areas also protected by CRZ notification of 2011. So the problem here is much different than what the whole of India is facing, because here the local planning body has become actually a local destruction body. The thing is that now NMC is in place, and if the decision taken by CIDCO results in flood, the CIDCO is not going to face the music. The music will be faced by the new corporation which is there in place. So we are demanding that all the decision making should be given to the Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation, because then they at least face the consequences of their action. And otherwise, we saw same thing happening here in Sector 27 Lotus Lake, which is a very beautiful lake. And CIDCO claimed that this is nothing but a plot, and they were dumping debris and filling it up. Again, we had to approach a court there and stop them. So, in a nutshell, I'll say that the challenges of Navi Mumbai are very different. Apart from normal threats like debris dumping and encroachment and other things, the biggest threat is that CIDCO is not doing their duty properly. And the letters which were given in January 2017 raises high suspicions about the motive behind such a letter, because with that letter, a 35 hectare land is being handed over to a private builder on a platter for peanuts. So I'll just end my, I think I already completed my allotted time. So I'll conclude with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunil. That was great. And now we move on to Sarita for the final presentation.
Yeah.
I think you have slides, right?
Yes, yes, I do.
All right. So you can share your screen.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, great.
I'm now going on full screen. Just let me know whenever it's visible through full screen mode.
Yep.
Okay. Very good evening to everyone who's present here and to everyone who will be seeing this on the live stream later on. So Jyoti and Mr. Agarwal gave an amazing presentation from very experienced perspectives. I know Mr. Sunil and Mrs. Agarwal, I think, used to host the Flamingo Marathon, at least when I was with Vanashakti until 2019, I remember. So they do amazing work when it comes to the outreach of the importance of wetlands. My topic is basically I'm going to speak about policy and where do wetlands come within policy in India and in general, like how did we come about even understanding what these things are. So before we basically talk about policy and the complexities of understanding where does wetlands come from, Mr. Sunil just gave a very good case study of Navi Mumbai, the areas under CIDCO, under JNPT, under Reliance, under the Navi Mumbai airport construction, the project. And I think one of the things, like when we look at it across India and across other places, is the persistent issues in understanding firstly what a wetland is. We have authorities that don't really understand in the first place what is a wetland. We've seen cases where they've even tried marking or asking, can we mark sand dunes as wetlands? And so the entire confusion starts from them not understanding only what is it. So very simply, when you say tell someone like this is a wetland, you understand this land, like wet and land, like you just divide the two words and you understand that this land is influenced by water, whether it's saline water, whether it's fresh water. That is where we distinguish scientifically, as Jyoti mentioned. And so this can be permanent or seasonally, and it depends whether it's inland or it's coastal and in which area these wetlands basically fall into. They are highly productive areas, but they're extremely sensitive and fragile because they're influenced by water. And they are centers of biodiversity and one of the most productive ecosystems. Inland wetlands and sanctuaries across India house a plethora of biodiversity, but coastal wetlands, for example, house otters, they house, in Sundarbans, they house the Royal Bengal tiger, and inland wetlands, the ones in sanctuaries and forest also house like big cats, you have panthers, you have jackals, you have wildcats, you have reptiles, and a vast number of birds. So putting it into perspective, the country basically, India has basically about 757,000 wetlands with a total area of 15.3 million hectares. And it accounts for about 4.7% of the country's total geographical area. And this is as of 2021, like this is last year's data. Sorry, I didn't cite it. But basically, so out of 4.7%, we may be at 4.1% probably, because every year we see a reduction in these wetlands and an increase in wetlands. So this is a declining figure that's been happening in India, that we're witnessing the decline of the percentage of wetlands across the country. So what are wetlands in policy? So now when now that we understand what they probably are and what they probably constitute to be and how they kind of look also, where are they in policy basically? So we have the Ramsar Convention, which was an intergovernmental conference of several countries by a body of the United Nations. It was not the United Nations per se. And they basically came to a place called Ramsar in Iran, and they decided to protect all the wetlands of the world. And so under the Ramsar Convention, you can basically earmark a particular wetland as a Ramsar site. So India has about, I don't know, Mr. Sunil can just help me out here, but I think more than 70 Ramsar sites in India as of today. So it's like these sites are present across the world. So say in Sri Lanka, we'll have some Ramsar sites. You will have Ramsar sites in European countries. You'll have Ramsar sites in Southeast Asia and all these other places. Very recently, in 2017, so the Ramsar Convention used to basically, provide this policy definition that this is a Ramsar site, especially for inland wetlands, because coastal wetlands came under other policies like the CRZ, which I will come to shortly so that I don't confuse you all. But very recently, in 2017, India released the wetland rules, which was basically how they understand the Ramsar sites and what could define a wetland in India. And this is where most of the issues have actually begun. So what about the other policy? So in the wetland, like in this one that India has released under the MOEFCC, the Wetland Rules 2017, they have said that all wetlands coming under the Coastal Regulation Zone notifications, whether it's 2011 or 2019, the Wildlife Protection Act, the Indian Forest Act, or any state private forest act, like for example, in Maharashtra, you have the Maharashtra Private Forest Act, will be exempted from the wetland rules. So basically, these policies that actually protect different types of wetlands and have been since all these years. The new policy, the wetland rules, say that all these sites, because it's already under some policy, will not be included in the Wetland Rules 2017. which is weird because they are wetlands and your policy is designed to basically protect wetlands. And so this has been one of the biggest, like for people who studied public policy or policy scholars, we didn't understand the logic of this. And to take it forward, they just didn't stop there. So before I move ahead on that front, just adding on to why is this integral to coastal policy, and one of the reasons why I'm even speaking about wetlands today is because I research on the CRZ and I research on coastal land use. And so as per the Bombay High Court judgment, mangroves, it was written in the judgment of 2006, it was said that mangroves play an important role in protecting seashores from erosion, high winds and cyclones. They act as a buffer between land and sea and play a very important role in fighting tidal erosion. The presence of mangroves does away with the need for expensive seawalls. This was by a judge in the Bombay High Court, and he put it in a judgment in 2006, which essentially also gave a lot of power to state authorities and also to activists who were trying to define why mangroves are important, why do they need to be understood as important wetlands, and so on. When we moved ahead, like we came to know, like the scientists, in the fisheries on the marine biology domain, told us that these are also breeding grounds for a number of cash crops, like in the fishery sector, like shrimp, crabs, and very high quality fish. And these are very productive ecosystems. They are just not flood protection barriers for your city, but they are very productive ecosystems too. And the survival of a large number of communities. So for example, if you've seen Navi Mumbai developing throughout since it was first made, like, and you see Seawoods and you go and see Palm Beach Road, these are beautiful wetlands that existed over there. And they, some of them have still existed because of activists who've been fighting so hard. But you can see that how this was a natural buffer to the local communities. And I just don't mean indigenous communities like the Koliwadas, but also the urban population living there from floods and so on. So Navi Mumbai used to not flood that much when Mumbai would literally be drowning underwater. And it was possible because of these large amount of wetlands and mangrove ecosystems that were present over there. This is a clip from the Wetland Rules 2017, and they have basically said that wetlands could be defined as anything under the rules, except, if you can see this thing over here, rivers, paddy fields, human-made water bodies for drinking purposes, for aquaculture, for salt production, for recreation, for irrigation, falling under Indian Forest Act, falling under Wildlife Protection Act, and falling under the CRZ. And they have said that on point 6, natural wetlands partly or wholly used for purposes mentioned in 4 to 6, which is basically for drinking water, to aquaculture, to salt production, to irrigation, to recreation, which could mean a casino. Like recreation has no limited definition, basically. So it could mean anything you want to do on a wetland. You can go build a casino fall decay. And so that would be allowed, and that would come basically under, that would be like excluded under these rules. That would come under these rules. So natural wetlands being converted for human purposes would be then included. If they are in the natural state and they are covered under these laws, they will not be considered under the wetland rules. And this was one of the biggest, I can't understand what is the purpose of this, because they even went on to give us a diagram basically explaining this, and they said that if it is a coastal wetland and you have this area designated under the Indian Forest Act, and this area designated under the Wildlife Protection Act, and this area designated under the CRZ, this whatever area will be left will come under the wetland rules. And this doesn't make sense, because all of this is a wetland. And if you have a policy that says that we want to protect and demarcate a wetland, you go and demarcate all of this, whether they come into whatever policy. And I think that is where we are the loss of defining wetlands. And the other smarter way they are coming, they're trying to define this is that wetlands being converted, for example, for aquaculture, which is basically you are having states like Haryana now, who is producing the most amount of shrimp production in the country. Haryana is a landlocked state with a lot of wetlands, which is being converted for aquaculture. And so they are saying those are now wetlands, and we are going to demarcate them under, like the Ramsar Convention probably won't recognize them, but under the wetland rules, we'll call them wetlands. And so this is the transition, and this is how broken, fragmented, ill-planned policies leads to, you know, the manifestation on these wetlands, on these very fragile, very important water bodies in the face of climate change. And just basically crunching the three things that are the biggest threats to wetland as of 2022. This is Navi Mumbai, and this is all the fancy projects that I tried putting in one collage of the bullet train and of all of the coastal road and everything. So the development models that we have come to understand, which is basically concrete means development. That is one of the biggest threats basically for wetlands in India. Tidal water blocks. This is a picture in Uran where I had gone with a fisherman called a mangrove fisherman called Nandakumar Pawar, and we had gone to see why. So Sidco blocks water into these mangroves, and so because you don't have the high tide and the low tide flow of water coming in, they automatically die. And they automatically die and wither away, and you have an amazing free piece of land available for whatever you want to do. All you have to do is just block the supply to the ocean, the water coming to it. And the third one is illegal reclamation. They'll just get a bucket load of mud from somewhere or concrete, and they'll start dumping on these areas. And they are so important, not just because, and we are not aware, but like so most of the Sundarbans is basically a wetland, but it probably doesn't come under the wetland rules because it's covered under Wildlife Protection Act and the Coastal Regulation Zone. And you have the Royal Bengal tiger surviving essentially in the Sundarbans because it's a wetland. I mean, they are the Royal Bengal tiger, the Sundarban tigers, as we call them. They have a very unique way that they've adapted to surviving in a place that does not have fresh water. So if you can see the nodes here, these are the mangrove nodes. And so they suck up the water, the sea water, like when you have the tidal influence, and they purify it and they make it drinkable for the big cats to survive there. And that is how you have this huge Royal Bengal tiger, Sundarban tiger, as we call it, which is like the pride of all, you know, of India and everything, surviving here because of a wetland. And so because we have not understood this linkage, which is which the tiger understands and the tiger really needs, we are having this fragmentation, not just of the Sundarbans, not just of Navi Mumbai, but of all wetlands, inland and coastal across the country. And this is one of the stark images of Mumbai's wetlands, where you have the annual flamingo migration coming to the city every year, and we see them and we can go and see them. Also, we have a nature interpretation center there. But you still have this looming demand for real estate, which you can see the buildings being constructed and the buildings already finished, and they are built on wetlands. So I'll just end my talk with that. And this is a picture we had taken in 2019. We were doing a study with the Northeastern University in Boston, where we were trying to study the inundation of mangroves on mudflats, which is basically on your wetlands, on mudflats, on your mudflats, you had mangroves growing on them, and the entire Thane Creek was closing up and is closing up and turning into a swamp. This is because although the area, some of it is protected for the flamingo sanctuary, you have the silt from landfills which are on these wetlands near Kanjurmarg or near these places, leaching into the creek, and they provide these additional nutrients for mangroves to grow on them now. And so this was what we were studying, and we hope that the results from the study helped the government when we had shared it with them and continue to do in saving our wetlands. So happy World Wetland Day 2022, and thank you.
Okay, that was really nice, Sarita. Thank you so much. Yeah, so now we'll move on to the next phase, that is question and answers. And Sunil has his hand up. Do you have something to say?
I'll just add, Sarita explained the policy very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So she spoke about this wetland rules 2017. Just explain the legal position actually. There was a wetland rules 2010, which was which put the responsibility on central government to protect all the wetlands, and they are facing a lot of pressure from Supreme Court to notify these wetlands. and they were not able to notify any wetland. The states were not cooperating. So in February 2017, Supreme Court passed an order saying that even though there are more than 7 lakh wetlands mapped by Wetland Atlas, but for these 2 lakh 1,000 wetlands, which are more than 2.25 hectares, we give them grant them protection, and they made central government and state government responsible for protecting them. And when in September 2017, these wetland rules 2017 were notified, immediately the petitioners approached Supreme Court, and Supreme Court on 4th October 2017 has given a landmark judgment saying that for these 2 lakh 1,000 wetlands of more than 2.25 hectares, the wetland rules 2010 will continue to apply and they remain protected. But this thing does not go into the head of the bureaucracy. When we complain to them about any wetland, they will say this is not a wetland as per wetland rules 2017. Whereas Supreme Court order of October 2017 is above this wetland rules 2017, and we waste a lot of time just explaining to them that their job is to protect all the wetlands which are in that wetland atlas, whether they fall in the definition of wetland or not under this new policy. So the struggle is that even though Supreme Court has given a judgment which takes care of the lacuna in this new policy, but these people are not understanding and creating problem.
Yes, Anil ji, I mean, that's an excellent thing you've raised. So basically, the legality of that Supreme Court judgment is that it will subsume the Wetland Rules 2017 because it's a judgment come by the SC. But the way that the bureaucrats have found a way to tweak around it is it doesn't mention specifically that irrespective of the Wetland Rules 2010 or of 2017, that the mapping will have to be done of these wetlands that are not mapped. So I think we will have to look at filing an application or another petition which says that can this mapping be done outside the ambit of the Wetland Rules 2017, or can the Wetland Rules 2017 be amended, which includes this judgment? Because they are just going to keep making us run around like the way they have since all these years. I know exactly what you're saying because Nandusa faces the same issue with Sidco and with Reliance, where they keep telling him that isme to Atlas mein nahi aaya hai, but and then the other thing that they've been telling us is that CRZ mein aaya hai, so it won't come under Wetland Rules 2017. WPA mein hai, like if it's under Wildlife Protection Act, it again won't come under Wetland Rules 2017. And the CRZ also, like in Maharashtra, at least I remember, they had not finished the CZMP till I think 2020. So they're just going to keep making us run around. And I think the easiest way to do this is to file another application, although that's like we've done it so many times. There are already so many PILs in court, but the only fastest way to do this is file another application citing the judgment of the Supreme Court saying that this is still not being done. And the reasons are policy, administrative hurdles. That is not the citizen's concern. And I think
I think the way Vanashakti has filed content petition in Bombay High Court, they need to file a content petition in Supreme Court
they need
also.
to in Supreme Court or
because
NGT.
The Supreme Court judgment of 4th October 2017, if you read, it's very clear that it is especially reiterates what they said in February 2017, just because these wetland rules were notified in September 2017. And they have said that they will continue to be protected. So they should be mapped. And in fact, they also noted that already the number of wetland is reduced to 1,70,000 something. So they are much concerned that slowly all of them will be lost. But I think that bureaucracy thinks that citizens will not understand. They show us Wetland Rules 2017. So we need to actually move the
somebody needs to just challenge the Wetland Rules 2017. I mean, actually, I would just challenge it.
Yeah, actually on that thing, 2017, when the court had given an order that you have to again, do the mapping because the mapping was incorrect. And there were so many wetlands which were missing in the list. So there was another survey being done. The court had ordered to carry out another survey individually. So I was on the similar board with Raigad Wetland Survey Committee. And we have noticed that the list what they had given us, where most of the wetlands were not included. Kharghar itself has almost, we've got around 33 ponds here with both kind, freshwater and coastal wetlands. So none of them were included in that, and there were hardly like 2 wetlands in Panvel area and 1 in Kamote area and 1 in Kharghar. The remaining were not in the list and they were not included in that.
And the other issue is the DP plan, because in the DP plans that are existing, they have earmarked these zones for development zones, or like in Navi Mumbai for the airport. And so they are like, now the wetland policy, CRZ, nothing will apply, because this is now it's gone under the DP plan for development. So I think the way out is to firstly, I think, there's this amazing thing called iNaturalist that a lot of these marine wildlife enthusiasts use. I think we should go, and the citizens should go map these wetlands and then make a comprehensive study or make a comprehensive database of this first.
We've
can-
already done that. We've already, Kharghar team and Panvel team, we've already done that. We are residents. We've got around 6 team members, and we had done this mapping and collected all the the reports, which included everything: the flora, the fauna, the soil, even water testing was done. And the entire report was submitted. But till now, as of date, after that, we've got 2 years of Corona, and again, things have started, but there is no news about it.
Yeah, Sunil ji, you can. I think if you'd be interested, I think you can just challenge the entire wetland rules. You have a
In
database.
fact, I have
of
filed
them.
a petition yesterday in Bombay High Court relating to these wetlands, and we are demanding independent mapping again by some agency,
Yeah,
because
if you can
whether it is
extend.
CRZ or whether it is wetland, we cannot rely on these agencies.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we have asked for a specific mapping to be done by some third party.
Yeah.
And
We have some questions from the audience as well. So we'll move over to those. So the first question is from Sahil. Sahil, maybe you can ask the question yourself.
Sure. So hi guys, I am Sahil Bhandare. I am a resident of Navi Mumbai, Nerul, pretty close to the wetlands, of course. And I have not known so much about the rules and regulations around them and the CIDCO problems, etc., that have emerged. So while while the narrative around wetlands being privatized and given off for development has come in, there is the only aspect why it comes up is there is an economic growth that the city is aspiring through it. So is there a possibility where you can say that, okay, 1 square inch of a wetland is of this value, and over a period of say 50 or 100 years, this value is going to rise exponentially because of the whole climate dilemma that we are facing, which is of course discussed in the COP26 discussion that we had. So maybe some quantifiables have given and said that, okay, if you destroy 1 square inch of a wetland today, the implications are going to be this amount. It could be in crores, it could be eventually something. And then we can go ahead and say, challenge, saying that, okay, if you build a building over here with a lifespan of say 50 years and you're going to eventually destroy the building after 50. So essentially you're destroying a wetland for monetization of a 50-year time period. Say that monetization is X whatever rupees, and take the climate narrative and add a per square inch value to the land. Maybe do some rationale to it. Of course, you guys know better, and bring a narrative where we can say that the cost of destroying a wetland is much higher than a development based monetary, I would say, earning that a city could have. Would that make sense?
it's a very good idea actually. The thing is that recently Supreme Court even appointed a committee. They put the value on trees. They said that trees value will be some 72,000 rupees per year for the balance period of life. So if something is that trees has balance life of 100 years, so it is some 72 lakh. Similarly, wetlands also, a lot of valuation is there. If you, today is World Wetland Day, you go to Ministry of Environment website of central government or state government, you will find that they will be giving all the importance of these wetlands and value. But the problem in Navi Mumbai is that CIDCO denies existence of these wetlands. For putting a value to wetland, you have to first agree that this is a wetland or this is a mangrove. They say, no, these are developable land, they were salt pan, the water has come, and for mangrove, they say, no, because sea has brought in those mangrove seeds, these trees, In fact, the trees are the encroacher. These mangroves are the encroacher on Sidco land. They have paid money and they have full right to destroy them. That's what their claim is. And for wetlands, the Sidco MD gave a letter in writing saying that there are no wetlands. So where is the question of putting a value on those wetlands? And we can understand if it is for some for infrastructure project. Then, like for mangroves, so there is a procedure that you can approach Bombay High Court. You have to justify what benefit will be coming to public. But here in NRI wetland and Chanakya wetland, the benefit goes to a private builder. The already made one golf course in Kharghar, which is hardly 10 kilometers away. So where is the so your suggestion is very good, but the thing is that first of all they should be recognized that they are wetland here. There is a mangrove here. So first of all, we have to actually ask Sidco to pack their bag and go from here, so that the municipal corporation can take this charge, and then we can put value to these resources.
I have something to say here. As you said about value, other than the value as what Sunilji mentioned, the other values are you want to do, there are certain projects which have been started by Government of India and certain departments. For example, Jal Shakti. What is that? You are creating, you want to make more wells, you want to store water. So what is wetland doing? It is giving you free storage. So why do you want to invest so much money in that mission? If you do this, so much money can be diverted somewhere else. You want to, there are flooding happening, there are hurricanes, there are storm at certain places, the tidal water comes inside. So you want to make some walls over there to protect your the coastal line. What is that? Wetland and mangroves are doing free for you. Why are you wasting so much money on that? So these are the projects which are unnecessary. You want to create a recreational ground. You want to create dinosaur parks with so many crores, 55 crores. I recently heard that Kharghar wants to start up a dinosaur park. The dinosaurs already extinct. Very good. You want to teach our children what were there in past, in the prehistoric era and those Paleolithic era. Dinosaurs were there. What kind of dinosaurs they want to see live. But these creatures, especially the structures, what they are creating in Navi Mumbai with those flamingos, and they are painting flamingos and they are making flamingo structure. Why are you wasting so much money when the live flamingos are there? You protect them. You don't even need to do anything, no, not to spend any money. Just give them protection. That's it. You already have revenue set in your budget. People, tourists will come to watch it. You have ecotourism over there. So what more do you want? Other than that, you want to spoil that and then want to create another project on that and earn money, which is not actually coming for the project, but going in their pocket directly.
Yeah, and just to crunch, I think Sunil sir's and Jyoti ma'am's point is, Sahil, this is how we require the amalgamation of research and policy or activism also. So where like putting a value to this is something that probably Jyoti ma'am's team can do. You know, she can go and identify these existing ones and put this thing on it. Like this is the cost of a wetland, whether you've identified it or not, because science has identified it. We know this is a wetland. And so then that goes and that can translate into, say, Sunil sir's PIL and be like, why have these things not been protected or mapped? And why are you building something else on this? So, yeah, I think just that. I think we should take the next amount. I think there are 3-4 more questions, Ajay.
Yeah, there's a couple more questions. All right, so I'll just move on to the next one. So the next one is the next question. I'm just reading them in order. Is by Azma. So Azma, if you want, you can ask the question yourself. Switch on your mic and camera, feel free.
Okay. Hello. As someone who is very new to this topic, so like, and I'm an amateur. I have a couple of questions. First one is, are Ramsar sites and wetlands same? Like, is there any difference? Because as far as I remember, they are not, like, I guess around 50 Ramsar sites, I guess, in India. But so that is one thing, that are wetlands and Ramsar sites both same, or is there any difference in those terms? And second one is there any proper data where like of all the wetlands and like of the all the wetlands in India with proper like number of species that are found there, endangered species, or this like with the number of species that are found there. I
उसको अभी
hope
छोड़ना है.
got my
So yes, Ramsar sites basically come under the Ramsar Convention for the importance of wetlands. So all Ramsar sites are wetlands, and then they also indicate what kind of wetlands they are. They are inland wetlands, or they are coastal wetlands, or they are man-made wetlands and stuff like that. There is a wetland atlas. I think that Jyoti ma'am would like to throw some light on the biodiversity aspects of it.
Every wetland, if you go to see, they all have a list of the endangered species and the flora and the fauna which is there. Especially nowadays, with so much awareness coming up, most of the cities and places where there are wetlands, there are particular groups who are there who have been recording these species. Especially if you go to eBird site, you will get the list of the birds. You will then there are the sites for insects. Then there are specific sites where you will get the entire detail of those habitat, the particular place, wetlands, insects, reptiles, mammals, and bird species. So flora, fauna species are there. If you go to a certain place, whether you are in Navi Mumbai or Uran, you will get these lists.
Right. Thank you. That was
Is your answer? Have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Actually, my question was like, the doubt in my mind was that if there is like, even in Mumbai, like you people are saying that they somehow damage the wetlands and they do illegal construction there, or they somehow get the permission to do the construction there. So, is there anything like a sort of a database with the government? So like, is there any process or is there any list that the government knows that okay, these are the sites where wetlands are? I mean, it is something like it should be problematic. Like there should be some kind of, I really hope I'm not confusing you.
That is
like
what Sunilji and Sarita said. The list were there, but everything was not included. That is why in 2017 they had asked us to prepare another list. But still, that list is not still yet being considered.
Okay.
See, and which had made those lists, we don't know who had made this list and what were the criteria when the list was made and why certain places were being left out. So that is why Sunilji said that we want another third party doing another mapping and listing of these things, so that there has to be a more clarity given and we can challenge these people, the previous list.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
right. That was great. It's 9 p.m. IST right now, so like that's technically all the time we have for discussion. But I really liked the discussion that we were having today. I thought it was very fruitful. So
Ajay, I think there's one last question, if we could just take it up quickly, because it's a very detailed question.
So I know, so I was saying that if people have to leave, they can go ahead and leave. If the speakers have like other obligations to attend to, it's all right. But if anyone wants to stay back for further discussion, feel free. We'll be right here. And if the speakers are there, then we can just talk about that question in any case.
Yeah,
Before
and
that,
we would also like to present a small token of our appreciation to
before
all the
that,
speakers.
yeah.
Ajay, go ahead. So
So,
sorry for cutting you off.
So we had a little gift for all of you. So this is off of a website called sankalptaroop.org. It basically, it's a project called Project Enrich Biodiversity, and they plant native species of trees in several areas in, I think, Nagpur and neighboring areas in Maharashtra. And we also did a webinar on we also have an article on how, growing homegrown species are beneficial more so to the local environment. So yeah, we've planted this for you, and you will receive an email for this from us containing the how far the progress of the tree is and whatnot. So we have one in everyone's name. So this is for Jyoti, and this one is for Sunil, and we've got another one for Sarita. This is just a token of appreciation from us to you for attending the webinar and also for your work uh, as a wetland hero. So thank you.
It's
Thank you
beautiful.
very
Thank
much.
you so much, Nivedita, Ajay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for this
much for joining
opportunity.
us today. And everybody's welcome to stay back for a discussion. If you have other obligations, you would like to eat dinner, feel free to um, disconnect. But if anybody is interested in discussing further, we invite you to stay on. And thank you once again to Sarita, Jyoti, and Sunil for taking out the time to be here today. We really appreciate it, and it's really amazing to have you speak to our community. Um, yeah, so do stay on if you would like to discuss. I invite everybody to switch on your video and your mic so that we can engage in a more face-to-face discussion on this topic.
Right. So I'm going to look at this question by Angad because I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
So I
maybe
think
Angad, you want to ask it yourself?
yeah, so I think Angad is on the meeting. So
Yeah,
Angad, you can ask
I
the question.
can ask it. So I'm from, firstly, thank you to all the speakers. This was a really, really enriching session. I'm from Kolkata, and as growing up in Kolkata, I think all of us have had this idea of the city being a part of the wetland rather than the wetland being a part of the city, because the Sundarbans are very, very close to the city. And the East Kolkata wetlands are some of the largest urban wetland systems in the world. And not only do they act as a flood control system, they also are responsible for most of the sewage treatment. So this is a natural sewage treatment of sorts. And you also have the Sundarbans sustaining an entire local economy through aquaculture. Now, we've noticed in Kolkata here over the last few years that there's been a lot of flooding in areas that have witnessed, rapid urbanization and unplanned urbanization, around this particular wetland. How would you recommend empowering, local and micro-democratic institutions to sort of, spearhead change and prevent these negative impacts of unplanned urbanization on the East Kolkata wetlands, or situationally on other urban wetland systems in India and around the world?
I think that's a culmination of, it's a great question, firstly. That's a culmination, however, I think, of what Sunil ji and Jyoti ji are doing. I think this is an excellent example of this, where Jyoti ji is trying to basically study them and, understand it from a scientific, from a biological perspective. And I think getting in touch with a lot of non-profits that are available probably in East Kolkata working on this issue, and sort of enabling them to identify firstly what a wetland is, because we've seen in communities, especially in coastal communities, including I live in Goa and I worked in Mumbai before that, there is a lot of confusion between what is a wetland in the first place. So I think just making that clear and creating that awareness would be one of the starting steps to this issue. And that would also, I guess, Angad, help with also the human wildlife conflict that Sundarbans faces because of the wetland
Exactly.
Royal Bengal tiger thing. So once we start explaining to the communities that what would these wetlands do, apart, they already know like it's a source of fish and everything, but in the long term with sea level rise, how this is going to be beneficial to the area, I think the awareness of that could be very instrumental in this, and that could start from the grassroots, from nonprofits working in that area, or just capacity building by going to these villages or having these online sessions like this and talking to them about it and having a discussion where not just one person is talking, but like how we are speaking, like somebody is asking questions and then you're answering, and maybe that not just in English but also in other regional languages in that area could be very helpful.
Thank you so much.
There's a question here by Yatin as well. Do you want to ask on your own?
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so among the panelists, is Sunil ji still there?
No, I think he left.
He left.
Okay, no problem. So I think the other panelists also have a very good answer to what I may propose. That there is a bunch of officers, and usually what happens in the bureaucracy is, at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, one officer will say, "No, ये तो decision उस department का है." That guy will say, "No, this decision belongs to some other department, and there's some other policy which is in place." So blah blah. So there is a dust cloud basically. Okay. Now, as people who know the system, would you be able to identify the designations like assistant municipal commissioner for this particular responsibility? Let's say it's mangroves, or the under which a particular mangrove falls. So can we not identify and put up a website and request the government for a periodic update on the status of the wetlands, for instance, encroachment, because we know it's a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not make the officers who are manning positions be responsible to give us a status, which can be monthly, which can be quarterly. So therefore, we basically have a more demanding accountability. Like citizens want a particular thing to be properly documented. That yes, मैं अभी काम छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ दूसरे assignment पे, मेरे होते हुए this. So can we not have a set of people who are responsible? I mean, they may say that, okay, I'm not responsible, but at least we know that for implementation of the Supreme Court rules and the judgment, these are the people who can be liable if that judgment is not.
That's an excellent question, Mr. Bansal. So one of the ways that, again, we need to create much more awareness about this thing is the RTI Act. So under the RTI, you can actually file an RTI asking what has this particular ministry or just the environment ministry or just the state government also has done in terms of wetland protection, because that is their mandate under the Ramsar Convention and under Ramsar sites and under all these rules. That's one thing you can do. And I think we have missed out on Sunilji, but he's been one of the people who've actually filed these RTIs asking, what have you done? And why have you not filed? And if the RTI response says we haven't filed, those are basis for asking as a citizen, why haven't, like, this is my taxpaying money, why haven't you done it? That is one way. But getting reports from the government, so they actually have to put up if they're doing any documentation. For example, if